Vape Politics Radio, covering calls to action all around the country, breaking industry news, all things FDA, event coverage, and answering your questions here at home and abroad. Make sure you follow us on Facebook at facebook.vapepolitics.com and go over and give our Twitter a follow at twitter.vapepolitics.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Vape Politics Radio. This is Vape Fest Miami, and we are sitting here today with Simply Vapor, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of the main themes of Vape Politics, which is the perception problem. And we're going to touch on that a little bit more and ask a question that I know quite a few of our viewers have been asking recently, and they want the answer, so we're going to ask the question for you. I'm sitting here with Simply Vapor, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Tell us your names, guys, and name your company.
My name is Brady Hill. I'm with Simply Vapor.
My name is Michael Maliche. I'm also with Simply Vapor.
How long has Simply Vapor been in the industry?
A little over 4 years.
We are fighting for the continued existence of vaping. What does your company do to stay involved in advocacy and activism?
Minnesota formed a group about 2 years ago called the Independent Vapor Retailers of Minnesota. Simply Vapor was fortunate enough to be a part of that forming. We are board members on that group, and we contribute financially to that cause, and we essentially do whatever we can to stay up to date with what's going on in Minnesota right now, because that's obviously our target, but we are aware of some of the other things that are going on in the United States as well.
Fantastic. Michael, do you have anything to add to that?
We also are proud to support SFATA and not blowing smoke.
The vaping militia as well.
Fantastic. And this is the main topic that I'm going to be running with this weekend, which is something that I talk about a lot on Vape Politics, which is the perception problem. The way that the non-vapor, non-smoking community, the large majority, see us, and how that's kind of spiraled out of control into a negative light in the last year, 2 years. So the question is this, and I'll hand it to you, and then we'll hand it over to Michael, and you guys can give your answers however long you want to make them. But the question is this: is vaping cool, and should it be?
This is a really interesting question. I know it's a very hot topic right now. I personally don't think vaping should be cool, but when I look and I see what's going on in the industry right now, it does seem to be a sort of an image thing. My one criticism, or whatever word you want to be, would be the clouds. I enjoy blowing a nice cloud from time to time, and I understand why people like it. But from somebody that doesn't really know anything about vaping, I think it creates a lot of questions in their head. What's in that substance? Are these guys really using this to quit smoking, or is this just something that they're doing? So that I can see where that would be kind of an issue, you know. And it's really hard because it's fun, and us as vapors, we think it's fun and it's really easy to partake in. But I think it's really important that we start looking a little bit more outward and really considering how the public perceives us.
And I just want to reflect on this question once more. Is vaping cool? My standpoint, not really. I mean, in Minnesota, we're a manufacturer of e-liquid, and so we do have a small retail presence, but, you know, that's not our mainstay. We make liquid, you know, throughout the day. But for the people who do come into a small storefront, they're really coming for help. They're looking for an alternative. So I'd say 80% of our customer base walks in the door looking for a flavor that just keeps them away from using traditional tobacco products. And, you know, vaping is a great alternative. But there is definitely people out there who are building devices and they're hobbyists. But does a hobbyist make vaping cool? It being a hobby? Probably not. So I guess that my best take on this is vaping probably shouldn't be cool, but there is a perception because of things like cloud competitions and blowing large clouds in public that makes people question, you know, is it a game or is it something people are doing for health reasons?
That brings me to another question. I'm glad you brought it up. Cloud competitions are something that have popped up in the last 18 months to 2 years, and it's something that at first I think we all thought, oh man, that's really cool. But as time has progressed and you have cloud competitions that now have prize money upwards of $10,000, people are calling it a sport. So what are your thoughts on sport type of vaping?
That's a really interesting question. I can only speak for myself at this point. I have really never been a huge supporter of the cloud competitions. In all honesty, when they all started getting big, I was just too busy to even, you know what I'm saying, get involved. It has gotten a little out of control in my take. Having $5,000, $10,000 prizes is really cool, but is that really encouraging people to use their electronic cigarettes in the right way? So I guess that would be my take on it.
Although the appeal may be great to the consumer who's coming to the shop, it's an opportunity to try new liquids and, hang out with their buddies and, blow big clouds. All in all, it's probably not a favorable activity because it really caters negatively to the image of this industry.
I think that's the biggest thing. I would agree. It's how it contributes to the image.
So let's talk about e-liquid for a moment, because you said you guys are an e-liquid manufacturer. And this is something that I asked at Mania and for the last few episodes, which is, have we as an industry lost sight of the smoker? And not specifically you guys. I do want to hear what you guys do specifically, but we as an industry, have we lost the get up and go to actually go out and retire smokers, to focus on those three magic words, tobacco harm reduction? So I guess the question is this: what do you guys do, and is the industry following suit, or are they going with their own path?
That is a really good question. One way that we contribute is we do still offer a high PG liquid. We call it essentially a starter liquid, or a line of liquid that might be for somebody that doesn't really want to get a rebuildable atomizer or a box mod. It can just go in their bottom fed tank. They can get started. They can quit smoking. That has been a huge focus of Simply Vapor since the beginning, and we still hold on to that vision. We love converting smokers into vapors. So from a business standpoint, and speaking on behalf of Simply Vapor, we are still very much focused on the new vapor. It's hard because I don't want to attack the industry, but it does seem that a lot of people might have lost sight of that. We've got a lot of max VG liquids, a lot of rebuildable stuff that might be really overwhelming to someone that is just getting into this, and they might even walk away if they don't see a different alternative than, a hobby mod. So Simply Vapor is still very much focused. I do run into a lot of people that still are focused, but it would almost seem that there might be a little bit of slipping in the industry, just what it's grown into in the last year.
Touch on that a little more. I have to say that, from the public perception, if you're walking around with a standard device and you're vaping something like a high PG liquid, you'll probably go mostly unnoticed because the cloud reduction is not very great. And a lot of people, they're hobbyists and they have these big box mods, and they're producing a lot of heat and they're creating a lot of clouds with high VG, max VG liquids. And although the max VG liquids taste better, and most vapors are going to choose to start with maybe PGs and evolve into the VG, we still need to work on our public perception image and work on vape etiquette and things like that.
But let's talk about diacetyl and AP for a minute. What are your thoughts? Have you had testing done? And do you think that that's something that the industry should be doing on a widespread scale?
You're right, my friend. This is a very touchy subject. Currently, Simply Vapor does not use any extracts that contain diacetyl. We do have a few that have AP, and I'm sure you guys are noticing that AP is getting a lot more attention than it has in the past. It was almost looked at as like maybe a sister chemical, or maybe not as harmful as diacetyl, but with all the attention that it's getting, we are actually in the process of removing that from our liquids. All of our liquids that contain AP do come with a disclaimer on the bottle, and that was the stance that we took initially when we didn't think it was as big of a deal as diacetyl, but as the awareness is growing, we are certainly in the process of stripping that from our products. Simply Vapor does not currently test their products. We are about to begin. We have an agreement with the U of M, and they're testing our products for us, and all that data will be available to all of our consumers as well. We believe the approach we've taken, but if anything would come up in any of that testing, those recipes would change. So
fantastic. And I appreciate you guys sitting down with me. Is there anything you want to add, anything going on in Minnesota that you think the public, the mass public should be aware of?
I would just encourage, this would be for Minnesota or any other state, just everybody to get involved in advocacy as much as they possibly can. If you were going to look into Minnesota, please check out the IVRM, Independent Vapor Retailers in Minnesota. We are doing good things there. We are working on being an example for the rest of the United States that may not have a political action campaign or a group of people defending this industry. So if anything, just check us out in Minnesota, see what we're doing over there. If your state doesn't have some sort of advocacy group, maybe work on encouraging your local manufacturers to begin starting one. It's really not that hard. It just takes an initiative.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you coming on. Welcome back, guys. I am here with kind of a trifecta. It's a very unique situation, but I am here with Bang Bang, Hawaiian Vapor, and .com, all in the form of two wonderful people I've had the pleasure of hanging out with this weekend.
Aloha, everyone. I'm Stephen Barry from Bang Bang Vape Co. We are part of this little crazy trifecta. We're a family-owned business. My wife is sitting right next to me. Her name is
Vanessa.
I think you guys will like her phone voice better than mine. But basically how it works is our whole family got in this business to help people quit smoking. And my mom owns the brick and mortar called Hawaiian Vapor in Vancouver, Washington. My uncle started the juice lines with .com Vapor and also now has the .com RDA. And then he actually gave me and my wife our own juice line company, which is Bang Bang Vape Co. for our wedding present. And we all work together and we all kind of simultaneously do our best to put all of our efforts into the vaping awareness and to the vape advocacy for every new vapor and smoker that's still out there who hasn't even heard about us or understands what it is.
How long have you guys been in the industry? And that can apply to your family as well.
That's a good question. It's been about 2.5 to 3 years. We started this because my wife and my whole family smoked cigarettes and I did not. And so I started vaping to hopefully monkey see, monkey do my family and get them to somewhat be intrigued to try and hopefully save their lives, one cigarette at a time. And in a short amount of time, my whole family quit smoking. When my stepfather's father passed away, he received an inheritance and goes, I really want to put this towards something where it's not just wasting the money and we can give back and also be able to take care of our whole family and everyone else around us. What should we do? And the first thing that popped in our head is we should be getting into vaping. We should be getting into the industry that is, for the first time in a long time, actually trying to make strides to improve this epidemic, in my personal opinion, of tobacco in the industry that is completely allowed to kill every single person on the planet legally without one person batting an eye. And that's how we all got started. And it's been a great journey every single step of the way. And it's been about 2.5 to 3 years now.
Fantastic. So let's get into kind of the girth of this. We, at the moment, we as an industry, we are fighting for the continued existence of vaping. What does your company do to stay involved with advocacy and
Well, for a very small example, even when we are at these very large events and they're overwhelming at times, because we are talking to so many people and trying so hard, we still have opportunities where we're able to get together, talk, discuss from different ends of the United States and partly around the world to figure out what we can do as a community separately in our own towns together when we come to different states together and being able to be in hotel rooms, discuss things like even small changes like we decided to do for this convention. We started adding $1 onto already our set prices, and any of that, every single product that's sold, that $1 is going back to advocacy. Yeah, maybe it's only a couple bucks here and here, but we're getting closer and closer to our ultimate goal. And the same thing is, there's just one person, smoking a cigarette, whatever, not that big of a deal. You'd rather go over to the people it's the whole group of people smoking the cigarettes. Well, that's still one person that we can save. That's still one life. And we have no idea how just one step can start making this revolution that can change so many things. And you start getting so many people working together and different sides and different minds that can work together to really come to an ultimate goal where we can help and actually make a difference. And even though we're very small together and in even our family business, our Trinity, we're all being able to help each other in different ways where some of us may fail, but together as an industry, we're excelling.
And just quickly to add to what Vanessa was saying, we do try and do things on the bigger level of, for instance, we are trying to create a movement of getting all the vendors to get together to be able to do this little $1 purchase thing to add to vaping advocacy, but that's going to hopefully one day be on a bigger scale. One thing that I always like to talk about when it comes to advocacy and to activism isn't necessarily what you can do on a big scale, but what you can do do on a small scale. And that's taking the time inside of our shops to actually educate people on battery safety and to educate people on what's really going on in the industry, because I personally feel that there's a lot of people out there who are kind of bypassing that, and we actually get ridiculed sometimes because we'll spend up to 4 to 6 hours with one customer if needed to be able to do whatever it takes to customize it to each individual person. And in my opinion, that's just as much activism and just as much advocacy as the bigger things that we're trying to do as well, like donate to the different organizations, donate our time, donate our product, and those are all phenomenal things. But I don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that it can happen on such a small scale, even from every single vapor out there who, when you see someone smoking, don't look at them like, oh, you're a smoker, when really you can sit there and you can be like, I was just like you. I understand exactly what you're going through. It was amazing to me when I had the revelation of, and you can go so much far into that. And it may take time and it may be cost effective to some people, but you're right, time does cost money. So if you're spending that small little time with the person, that one person, then you are, in my opinion, just as much of an advocate or an activist as anyone out here on the front lines doing the bigger works as well. And together, if we simultaneously do both, we can truly make a difference.
Let's move on to the topic at hand today for this episode, which is touching on something that I talk a lot about, which is the perception problem. The way that not the vapors, not the industry that we are in, but the everyone outside of us, the non-smokers, the non-vapors, and even sometimes the smokers, the large public, the way they view us over the past year and a half to 2 years has spiraled out of control into what I believe is a negative light. So the question is this, and this is what I kind of want to get from you guys. Is vaping cool, and should it be?
I really feel that in every industry, there is going to be two sides of every story. And to answer your question, I kind of have to give you a two-part answer. To say, is vaping cool? No, I do not feel that vaping is cool. I feel that vaping is a tool. And if you use the tool properly, it can successfully build or destroy anything. And obviously that's a very vague statement there, but that's how I personally feel. If we're using it to strictly quit smoking, no, vaping is not cool. Have we turned vaping into almost a hobby / I'd hate to use this word, but a sport? Yes, we have. And is that another side of it? Yes, it is. But I also like to look at the same thing when I look at automobiles. Is driving a 4-cylinder beater from point A to point B so you can be able to commute to your work and get your family food and bread and a roof over their heads, is that cool? No, it is not. But it is a tool to allow you to achieve the goals that you need to achieve. Now, is buying a Mercedes-Benz fully decked out or a Lamborghini, is that cool? Absolutely. That's the hobbyist, that's the sports side of the car industry. So for people to say, is cars cool? In some respect, yes, vaping is cool because you can do so much with it. But at the same time, if we're strictly talking about vaping for helping people quit smoking cigarettes, no, it's not cool. It's a tool. But have we taken this tool and have we been able to figure out a way to not only make it a tool, but also make it a hobby, which can be cool? Absolutely. If you see some of the builds that some of these people are capable of, I'm sorry, there are some really cool builds out there that are really beautiful and that will someday be considered artistic pieces of masterpiece. And it may not have gotten to that part yet, but that will come. But will that ever take away the initial tool of vaping, which is to help someone quit smoking cigarettes? Absolutely not. And should it be cool? I think that's the best part of the question that you asked. And I think that it should be whatever it takes to help people quit smoking. And if that means that we need to have a two-part industry, then I am all for it. If it means that we need to dial down and only focus on one of them for now so we can defeat the hypocrites that are trying to stop us, then maybe we should dial down. But in the long run, I know for a fact that there are people out there who will not quit smoking until they see it as a cool thing. And if that helps them, then by all means, I'm willing to take that route as well. So I don't know if that correctly answers your question, or Vanessa, if there's anything you want to add to that. But I really feel like that's the best way I can answer that question, even though it's a little bit lengthy, and two-parted.
You brought up a hot topic issue which I do want to touch on real quick. The word sport, because that brings me to a question that I've been asking recently in the past few episodes, which is the opinion of juice manufacturers and e-liquid manufacturers and hardware manufacturers on this one simple question. Is sport vaping good for our industry? And the reason I ask this question is because a year and a half, 2 years ago, when cloud comps really started gaining traction, it was for fun. It was a few vapors getting together at a shop. Now we're having nationally recognized giant cloud comps where the prizes are anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. And the issue that I see is that when a news reporter does an article or does a piece on television about vaping, what do we see? We see the clouds and we see the younger generation of vapors, which is all well and good, but that's the public perception. So I guess the question is, what are your thoughts on sport type vaping, and is it helping or hindering the industry?
I personally feel, and this comes down to a personal opinion, so I don't want anyone to take this as me trying to push anything on anyone else. I personally feel that there will always be people trying to make us look bad. And does the sport vaping look bad? Yes. Because of the way that the perception is being manipulated by the press and by the media, it does look bad. At the same exact time, and I have to play devil's advocate on this, if I can get one more smoker to quit smoking because of sport vaping, then I still feel like it should be there. And it's the same thing, and I always use analogies, and I apologize if this seems lengthy, but people in the media will talk bad about almost any sport. In football, it's concussions, and it's brain damage, and it's this and that. But if that football can take a kid out of the inner streets of the ghetto who had no self-esteem, who had no family, no camaraderie, and was on the verge to the point of even suicidal. But if football can take that kid, that one kid, and it can make him feel like he has a place that he can fit in, and a place that he can have a camaraderie, and a place that he feels that he can be accepted, then in my opinion, everything else is null and void, because it really comes down in this country. And in this country, I believe in freedom. I believe in the freedom of choice and the freedom of speech. And just as much as they have the freedom of speech to try and make us look bad, we have the freedom to choose how we want to do this. Now, do I feel it does look bad in certain instances? Yes. But can you take a positive from every negative? Yes. So do I feel like we should condemn sport vaping? No. Do I feel like we should over-publicize sports vaping the way that it has been in a lot of these vape magazines and online things like that? Not at all. But it's still going to be a part of the vaping industry no matter what. And so what I think the media is trying to do is turn vapors against each other, because there's a majority of my heart that says sport vaping is absolutely ridiculous. And I personally don't cloud competition. But I also know that I have people that walk into my store who they wouldn't have started vaping if it wasn't for seeing those O tricks and tornado tricks and things like that, because they did think it was cool. And it may have just been that at first, but after they got into it, now they are more about the advocacy and the vaping and saving people's lives than a lot of people who don't even agree with sport vaping. And so it's kind of like if sport vaping were to bring the one person that you never thought you could bring into this industry that just so happens to have the charisma and the ignatics to actually change people's opinions about vaping, then it would be worth it for all of the bad publicity for that one person. And granted, this is all what ifs, but then again, if we lived our lives on what ifs, then nothing would ever get done. So I don't know how well that answers your question, but I hope I did the best I could.
I appreciate you guys coming on the show. One more question for you. Is there anything going on in Oregon that we need to be aware of for you guys, because this does reach a widespread audience? Is there anything going on advocacy-wise up there that the public should be aware of?
I think there's things that we should be aware of in every single city and state, and that's the fact that if we don't join together and we don't work as one, then the industry is going to fall. In Oregon and Washington right now, there's a lot of people trying to do 90% taxes on e-juice, which we have gone to the Board of Health and we had they tried to make it where you couldn't even vape inside of a vape shop, which would really throw away a lot of businesses in the West Coast, because if you can't try a flavor, how are you supposed to customize it to someone to be able to get them to quit smoking? They're also trying to make it seem as if vaping is the worst thing that has ever happened to the West Coast. So because of that, I think that we all need to be aware of ourselves in whatever area you are. And if you're in Oregon and Washington and you listen to this, I hope you guys realize that there are Pink Lung Brigade. And, if you're other places, I hope you know what not blowing smoke is. I hope you know what CASSA is. I hope you know what vaping militia is. I hope you know what Vape BRV, SFATA. That's another great one. Basically, I think the biggest thing to be aware of is ourselves and what's really going on. And if we can do that, then we're going to be stronger than anyone ever realizes. And just because it feels like the government is Goliath, don't forget David won that battle. And it was by nothing but his pure determination and his belief in everything and everyone that had his back. And he was fighting for something bigger than even Goliath himself. And I personally feel that we are fighting for something bigger than the tobacco and the pharmaceuticals and the media trying to push us down. And because of that, we don't need an army. We don't need a special weapon. All we need is a slingshot and one stone to do the trick. And I don't know what that stone is, and I don't know what the slingshot is. All I know is if we keep working together, then we can figure it out. And in my opinion, that's the biggest thing we need to be aware of, is what's the next step? It's just like us trying to do this thing where we're trying to get all these vendors to donate $1 of every single purchase to vaping advocacy. That's not going to be very big right now. But if we can get this to be a movement, imagine if you went to ECC and all these vendors who threw away 200,000 bottles, that they would have just taken $1 from each one of those bottles and gave it to an organization to get lobbyists and everything else. The vaping industry would be stronger in your area. That's $200,000 off of one event that you could get, that you already were giving away the money anyway. But why not give it to something that's actually going to make a difference? Why not give it to people who are trying to find the stone to defeat Goliath? And once again, I speak in a lot of analogies and metaphors, but I hope that answers your question. Thank you for having us on the show. Vanessa, thank you for being here and being my wife and always supporting me in everything that I do and supporting everything that we do. Honestly, without you, I wouldn't be able to do it. And without you vapors out there standing up, then we wouldn't be here either, and we can't do it. So just as much as I'm thankful for my wife supporting me in this business, I'm thankful for every single person who actually listens to this and who actually takes it to heart. And, think of your own ideas. How can you make a change? What can you do? I believe it was John F. Kennedy who says, don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Don't ask what vaping can do for you. What can you do for vaping? Everyone has ideas. Everyone has dreams. Take them and use them. The only way to make an action happen is to have a thought, and that thought is then acted upon. So use our brains, be aware, think, and as soon as you figure it out, just take a step. And once you make that step, I promise you, one foot in front of the other, you will soon be running. And when you are running and you look back and you realize how far you came, no matter how hard it feels when you were running, you will realize that you conquered something that most people will never be able to conquer, all because we took a thought, we took a chance, and we took a step of faith. And if we can do that together as an industry, there is no way, no how that anyone will ever be able to stop us, because we are not doing this out of greed. We are not doing this out of this facade of being cool or trying to be the next coolest hip trend. We are doing this because we are trying to save lives. And if anyone tells you otherwise, feel free to have them come talk to me, because the only thing that matters in any of this is to help people quit smoking. Because every single day there is a grandson who loses their grandparents, or there is a son who loses their parents, who now has to live this life with nothing but confusion and pain and sorrow because of a warped industry that has been allowed for way too long to continue to exist. And we have the opportunity and the means and the right to be able to stand up for it. And it doesn't take me sitting here with Noah and having this conversation for it to happen. It takes you to have these same conversations in your living rooms with your friends. It takes your friends to go out and talk to their friends. And the spider web will gain so much traction and have such a big snowball effect that no one can stop it. Because when you have something to truly fight for, the person who wants it the most wins. And we want life. We want love, and we want our family. And nothing can stop that if you guys have the ability to just take that step. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. I appreciate it. Welcome back, guys. I am sitting here with someone from my own hometown. I'm here with Higgy Cigs, and we are going to go over some of the questions that we've gone over today and touch on their company a little bit and what's going on in ATL. So just tell us your name and the name of your company, and we'll get the ball rolling.
I'm David Higginbotham with Higgy Cigs.
Fantastic. How long have you been in the industry?
We've been making juice for about 3.5 years. We've been in actual business officially as Higgy Cigs for a year and some change now. We've had our lab situated in place for a few months now, which has been fantastic. We did start off in our home and have grown out and just love everything about this industry.
Great. We are fighting for the continued existence of vaping. What does your company, your business, do to stay involved in advocacy and activism?
We are big on turning smokers, retiring smokers. That's actually kind of a hobby of ours. We take great pride in being able to break a smoker. We have gone through. I know they've started calling it sponsoring a smoker. We've been doing that for years now. I know between Jen and myself, my wife, we have retired somewhere over 100 smokers in the past 3 years, and love doing it. None of our close friends smoke anymore. We've converted all of this. Matter of fact, that's where we started because nothing was around the Atlanta area. So we had to order all of our stuff online. We felt like we were on an island all the way until about a year ago. And that was the first time that we started finding the vapor community, primarily through Vapors TV, actually.
Wow. I want to touch on what I call the perception problem. And if you've ever heard my program, the perception problem is what I believe is the way that the mass public, the non-vaping, non-smoking public sees us through. It's like the lens of which they see. And that perception has spiraled out of control over the last year and a half. What do you think has attributed to that? And the question that I have for you is vaping cool, and should it be?
I think that vaping is cool, and I think that vaping is cool to vapors. The problem is that outside of the vaping community, some people are attracted to mass plumes of clouds. Some people are attracted definitely to the vape tricks and all sorts of things like that. But I think that there's also what I've heard referred to as the fedora syndrome, which basically is that, only douches wear fedoras, excuse me. And so the same thing goes for the vape community. The vape community, they closes themselves off into this thing. And if you're not making big clouds, do you even vape, brah? That's what I am always hearing, And the thing is, I don't care if you're doing sub-ohm. I don't care if you're doing an Ego with a CE5 or a CE4, or if, for that matter, if you're on a 510 with a little bitty tank. As long as you're vaping and not smoking, that's the most important thing. And we've got to do everything that we can to attract smokers. And I think at times we're too focused inward and what can we do to make this even cooler and all of that, which is great. I think there has to be an element of that. We've got to keep the kids on this stuff. We got to keep them on it. Your 18 to 30-year-old, when I say kid, I refer to an 18 to 30-year-old. These guys, what's going to keep them in it? Competitions, the cloud chasing. It's good to keep them in and to keep them entertained and active in the community. And what we found is that when you're vaping, you're doing good stuff for your body. The reports are out there. Now, those things need to be shared as well, especially with the people at large. I don't think that we're doing enough to reach out to the general public. And we need to find a way to do that. And we need to find a way to do it before the FDA and these local governments with their closed sessions just closing down vape one state at a time. That's got to stop. All they're doing is defending big tobacco. Big tobacco is the enemy. And we need to realize that. Big tobacco, not the smokers. The smokers are victims. They're all victims, and we need to recognize them as such. And we need to help them realize there's a better solution out here, and there's something that fits you. And no, you don't have to be making clouds that fill up a room in order to do this. But if you want to, we can help you do that too. We need to. It needs to be a bit of a balance, and a lot of times there's not. If you're going to your group and all that's in your group are a bunch of people blowing vapor at each other and calling each other out, well, you need a little bit more than that. You need to you need to be looking at the reports. You need to be seeing all the studies that have been made, so that when this myth that there are no studies, well, there's studies everywhere, and they're coming out week by week, and it's been phenomenal to watch. Just 2 weeks ago, the report came out showing that there are fewer particles in vapor than there are when you exhale. That's nuts. It's filtering. But basically what it taught us, there is no such thing as secondhand vape. None. And this is incredible news, and I'm not hearing that hailed anywhere. We try to at Higgy Cigs. We try to put this in our Facebook and stuff like that. We maintain it on Vapors TV, but. There needs to be more of this shared with, I'd love to see more of these reports on Fox News, CNN, the radio broadcasts. I think that if, I don't know if anybody has a pipeline to any major journalists or commentaries out there. If we could get hold of some of these guys and get out there in the mass media and stop what's happening, because what the FDA is trying to do to us, they're not trying to regulate us. They're trying to put us out of business. And that's going to happen. If they go with what they're wanting to do, they want to put a price tag on every single flavor and nicotine level. And if they do this, they're going to drive vaping right out the door and underground. And then that's all you're going to have are the cloud chasers and whatnot who are living underground and buying underground. DIYers, it's going to be tough for them to get nicotine, but that's the only way that you're going to be able to get juice. So they're going to have to source it overseas, and nobody wants to be buying Asian nicotine. Okay, you need to be buying that stuff here stateside so it's safe. Everything that they're doing is going to tear apart our community, and people are not recognizing this. And I think that if the public at large realized what was going on, I think that they would be upset. This is a grassroots thing that the government hates. It despises, because big tobacco has been feeding it for generations now, and we've got to step up our game. Otherwise, we are going to lose. We're going to lose everything that we've gained here, and what we have here is. We actually do have that magic pill that can stop smoking. It works. And so the only thing we can do, if we're going to educate the mass community, we've got to start with the smokers. The last report I heard said that we have tapped somewhere between 8 to 12% of the tobacco of tobacco users. If that's the case, that's terrible. We need to get the other 90%, 90-ish, whatever number it is. We need to get them. And what we need to do is we need to go ahead and veer them into getting something that they're comfortable with. I know the gal that has come here to work with me today. She has told me, she said, I don't want to produce all these clouds. I like to keep it toned down. I don't like people to see it. I love the juice, but I do not want to be blowing out huge clouds, and I don't want this big mod in my hands. I want something small and discreet. Well, I know there are some people out there that would say, well, you're not vaping. Well, yeah, you're vaping. As long as you're vaping and not smoking, you're doing the right thing. And we need to encourage that kind of thing and get these smokers the hell away from cigarettes for good.
Agreed. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you want to say to the mass public? Anything going on in Atlanta?
Atlanta is definitely growing in the vape community, and it's an exciting thing to watch. There are vape shops opening everywhere all the time. It's wonderful to watch, and guys, jump on board. Get your smoking friends or people that you run into. When you see a smoker, don't chase them away. Don't act offended. Talk to them about vape. Pick up some tips from your local store. Okay, chances are they will give you a handful of them for free. You can also buy them by the bag. Usually the vape shops will sell those things, 100 of them for $5 to $7. Pick up some. Share your vape with them. Let them taste what this is all about. It not only will you be helping the vaping community at large, but you may save a life in the process, because vaping does save lives.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on. Welcome back, everybody. I am here with Donovan of Avail. We are going to talk a little bit about the questions that we've been asking today, which is the perception of vaping and how that applies to the industry as a whole. So we'll start off with just introductions, but tell us your name of your company, and who you're here with this weekend.
So my name is Donovan Phillips, and I'm from Avail Vapor. And this weekend, I'm here representing 3rd Street and Archive, two of our new lines for wholesale.
Fantastic. How long have you been in the industry, Donovan? I know that this is your second or third time on the show, but just in case we have any new listeners on this episode, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into vaping.
Sure. So how I got into vaping. So I was a typical old school vapor who was walking through a mall, found a kiosk, and picked up a small stick battery. And that's kind of where it started. And the journey really kind of took on a life of its own back then, from trying to build my own mods and then starting to get into the juice. That was close to 5 or 6 years ago now. So yeah, that's kind of my lineage from start to finish. And, so now, representing Avail, right? We're liquid producers and contract manufacturers and, advocates all the way around, for sure.
So the questions that I have for you today are, we are fighting for the continued existence of vaping. What does your company do to stay involved with advocacy and activism?
Sure. Well, as a Vail, we have hired lobbyists, and last year we were able to defeat 6 bills, so that was kind of cool. And they're on our staff, and we love to do what we do and stay involved. Again, we're very friendly with lots of the different arms out there, so like vaping militia, for example, and these kinds of things. Absolutely.
And this is the topic question of today, and I want you to go kind of in depth with this because I know that you have a lot to say about this specific subject. But I want to touch on something that you and I have talked about something in depth, which is the perception problem, the way that the public, the non-vaping, non-smoking public, views the industry, and how over the past couple of years it's become sort of a negative perception. Touch on that, and then the question of the episode is vaping cool, and should it be?
Ouch, Noah. That's quite a tough one, man, especially to be on record. So let's see. Okay, so is vaping cool and should it be? I can talk this from a personal perspective and then as a business owner, right? So, personally, is vaping cool? I think it's fantastic, right? It's changed a lot of things about my life and my lifestyle. And, I personally could never see myself going back to traditional tobacco, right? So on that aspect, absolutely, right? The powers that vaping can have, for the positive are very, very good, right? It's just something altogether different. And the choice to use nicotine is a personal one, right? So for me, it's fantastic, right? The choice to vape rather than to use traditional tobacco. So in the media, you kind of touch base on that, right? Perception. So perception is reality. That's kind of really cliche, but it's true, right? So a lot that hits the media is of pictures of events like this and vapor stores from all different calibers, right? And typically, bad journalism sells more papers. So knowing that that's the angle, right? Because it sells more papers. That's what they like to put in the articles, right? So at shows like this one that we're at, you see the 1%er vapor, right? The cloud chaser, the super enthusiast, the hobbyist who wants to build everything. And if that's what's pictured and that's what's in the media, that's a very small subsect of our entire marketplace. So on that note, I would say if that's perception is the reality, right? And that's same with social media and what trends on Instagram and these kind of things. I'd say it's very different and a very wrong image of our entire industry, right? We should all be focusing more on our roots of the smoker, right? To turn them into a vapor. And that's truly where I think the industry needs to go. And as a Vail, that is our position, right? We take care of the smoker, right? Or the ex-smoker, right? Rather than the super enthusiast. And I know that's kind of a bone of contention for some of our customer base because we don't necessarily only cater to, the hobbyist, if you will. But I think it's a very good stance. And I think in the marketplace being very secular, right? That trends come back around just like fashion and these kind of things. You'll start to see a trend and move away from where it's going right now and hopefully back into the vapor, right, and our roots. So just like it'd be very tough to see certain products that were on your shelf 6 months ago start to move, I think stuff like that will become more and more popular again. For example, at this show, I've seen 4 people using K-Funds, right? That's amazing, right? It's designed for flavor, right? For vaping, for vapors. So it's rebuildable and it's for flavor, right? So at a show lately, right, like at an ECC and these kind of things, it's very rare. That would be your diamond in the rough. The needle in the haystack is to find somebody who's flavor chasing, right? I think you'll start to see something kind of interesting in the works here vapor-wise. But perception is reality, absolutely. So is it cool? Vaping as a whole, yes, right? But that's a personal choice and a personal decision. But do I like it being portrayed in the media as cool? Absolutely not. Because it's a personal choice. Picking up a pack of cigarettes for the first time is a personal choice. Although everybody did it because it kind of made them feel a little bit cooler, right? Right. And that's not what vaping's about, right? It's the difference it's trying to move away from traditional tobacco products. It's something that is possibly less harm, right? That's the movement. That's what it's all about. That's where it starts, right? Just because we like to rebuild in these kind of things and we come to these shows doesn't necessarily mean that that's where everybody will be. So I think taking a very neutral stance, kind of Switzerland, if you will, to stay in between the two and not alienate a client base or a customer, right? But not necessarily only showcase the super enthusiast, the cloud chaser, if you will, is probably a great market choice. So kind of wraps it up. Long-winded answer.
Fantastic. Just one more question for you, because we kind of touched on it with the hobbyist and enthusiast side, and I've asked it a couple times today. From the perception is reality kind of viewpoint, let's talk about sport type vaping. It seems that in the past year and a half to 2 years, there has been a trend that has popped up in the e-cigarette world, which is cloud competitions or trick competitions or building competitions. And 2 years ago, when it was just in the shop, that's all well and good and all in good fun. But it seems that with the $5,000 to $10,000 prize money and people being flown out because they're professional cloud blowers, do you think that's setting a bad precedent for the industry?
Wow, Noah, with the heavy-hitting questions, buddy. So, wow, I would go to look at any kind of sport, right? Extreme sports, if you will, right? Skateboarding and doing backflips over half pipes is extremely dangerous. And should everybody be on a skateboard trying to do a backflip? Absolutely not, right? Is that for the average skateboarder that's hopping on a longboard and, trying to get some exercise on the way to work? No, not a chance, right? So there's multiple different angles to look at, right? I wouldn't want to look at it from one polar opposite to the other, So vaping is a sport, right? I think anything could truly be turned into a sport as long as you have an audience and participants, right, in the sport. But I don't think it should be looked at as necessarily a negative, right? But I wouldn't want to sensationalize vaping, right, to get people to start vaping just to do a cloud comp or a trick comp or these kind of things, or a build comp, right? That wouldn't be a choice that I would want to make for somebody. If they never smoked a cigarette and these kind of things, I would hate for them to start because they wanted to participate in a competition. All those zero nicotine products are available. We produce everything we make in zero. Anything that you inhale into your lungs is bad, right? That's not air. Or clean air, rather, because there's pollution and so on and so forth, right? That's something, you can't really run away from. So until more long-term studies have been done and all that kind of stuff, I would hate somebody to start even just vaping zero to compete in a cloud comp. But if they're already a previous smoker who's changed to vaping and they want to compete in a sport, right, then I think that's okay. I don't think that any negative press would be good on that, because typically the guys who are competing for prize money and these kind of things in serious competitions, no batteries. They know what they're doing, right? Or they've at least practiced a skill, right? It's the ones that are attempting to get there, right, by using unsafe builds, unsafe products, not safe battery chemistry, and don't know their equipment that could be causing an issue, right? It's any sport, extreme or not extreme, right? There's an element of risk and danger, right? And this one has its own inherent risks. But I wouldn't want to sensationalize any of those risks over someone who is diving, right? Or someone who's doing a backflip off a half pipe, right, on a bicycle or skateboard. I think that as a sport, it could be looked at as a sport for sure. And I'm sure a lot of those competitors, in order to do these kind of things, are having to use low nicotine, if any at all, right? So I wouldn't look at it as anything other than, hey, it's a new sport, right? Like curling. And that's, I guess, it in a nutshell for sure.
So before we close out and I'll let you get back to what you were doing, is there anything coming down the pipeline from Avail or Third Street or Archive that you want to let the public know?
Well, sure, man. So let's start off with Third Street and Archive. So these two liquids have some really cool scannable technology that we included and kind of coded for them. The idea is, how do you get the certificates and testing into a consumer's hand, right, or into the shop owner's hand? So these bottles feature scannable QR codes, right, that allow the full C of A to be downloaded to the user's phone. So it tells you everything that's in the bottle, right? It tells you ingredients, it tells you the nicotine titration, it talks to you about, acetyl, propanol, and diacetyl, and these kind of things. It gives you a born-on date, a batch lot code, and the whole nine. So it's a full C of A that can be physically downloaded onto the phone. That's just 3 seconds away from scanning one of the labels. So we think that's pretty cool. And both Third Street and Archive both feature this technology. And the next thing you asked is anything new coming up in the pipe. So Avail is launching 2 new Addies here coming up shortly. And I think they're going to be pretty cool too, right? They feature some really cool tech inside. And it's just our spin on a couple different things, for sure.
Awesome. So when will be the next time that we see you at an event?
I think our next event is Summit, so Vape Summit in Houston. So coming up here, October 8th to the 10th? Mm-hmm. So I definitely come check it out. We'll be in the Boulevard in Vape Summit. So it'll be a pretty cool thing. And I think if we have enough time, these 2 atomizers will launch and drop at Summit in Houston for sure.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Donovan. Welcome back, everybody. We are moving into our final segment for this episode here in Miami, and we are going to talk to 2 of the leading advocates and activists for the vaping industry. You guys want to introduce yourselves and tell us what's going on?
I'm Joe Barnett from the Vaping Militia. It's been a great time down here in Miami, and I'll hand this over to our other person.
Hi, I'm Stefan Didok of Not Blowing Smoke, and just like Joe, it's been a great time here in Miami.
All right, guys, this is going to be a very interesting segment for us because this is the first time that I think this program specifically has done a consumer-based Q&A. But about 6 hours ago, I put the question out there. If you have a question for some of your advocates, we want to hear what you have to say. So the following, up until the last question, will be all consumer-based questions. First is from Facebook. I notice a disconnect between many younger vapers and the political side of vaping. What can we do to bridge the gap and get them involved and make them more aware of the fight?
Well, it's really not an issue of a disconnect between the younger people. It's a matter of society the society of today. Younger people really aren't interested in politics, and you really can't drag a horse to water and make him drink. All the information's there. In fact, the education for someone to become very effective, no matter what their age group is or even their social affiliations, they just have to be willing to do it. And it's all about stepping up and doing something, not about waiting someone to hand it to you.
Like Joe said, the disconnect between young people and politics has been around since probably forever. On the other hand, if vaping is something that they're into and they feel very passionate about, maybe that might be the stepping stone that helps them get more interested in politics. Because I know when I was younger, I had no interest in politics at all. It wasn't until like 10 years before I started vaping that I started paying attention to things. And it wasn't until after vaping that I really started studying how the system works and all the intricate details. And then, of course, in a forced way, got involved. So there might be a little hope that if they feel passionate about, they might be more interested in politics now.
Perfect, and that's a perfect lead into my next question, which comes from the website, vapepolitics.com, and that is, what did you guys do before advocacy?
Before advocacy, so we're talking about like a past life, right? Let me try if I can remember it. I was 18 in 1989, and I started my own company doing production of 3D computer graphics and animations. Back in those days, it was a Stone Age world. There was no industry, so you had to write a lot of the software yourself. So I ended up spending a lot of time writing tools, writing animation programs, and that ballooned out into a 25-year career that I officially stepped back from about 6 years ago and decided to do other techie stuff instead of that. So for 25 years, I've mostly been developing 3D computer graphics and animation software.
Well, out of high school, I decided to join the Navy. I spent 15 years in the Navy and then was retired. After that, I also went into the IT industry, more into infrastructure and architecture development. I did that up until about 6 years ago, and at that point I decided it was time for me to retire and relax for a little bit. And then I was approached by Jim Raines and Fred Dauscha to bring whatever my component is to the militia. So that's what I did.
Fantastic. This is a big one, so we'll give you guys a minute to kind of go through it, but this comes from Facebook as well. Our opponents spend a lot of time and money spreading misinformation and getting their message out to the general public, whether it be through news, media, or public health campaigns. Since the general public are the people that we ultimately need to get on our side, what are we doing to actively get our message to them, and do you see it as a high priority?
That sounds like a typical not blowing smoke question, because not blowing smoke wouldn't exist if it wasn't part of the answer to exactly the question that was asked. We should be doing a lot more, and what we hope to do with Not Blowing Smoke is provide the content for others to run with. So whether we're talking TV commercials, billboards, print material, or lobbying the media to have op-eds placed, that's exactly what we hope to accomplish. The way public opinion is being influenced right now is way different from what it was a year ago. A year ago, it was newspaper articles, web articles, and incidentals on TV where they had like short stories in the news. These days, it's full-blown TV commercials, ads in movie theaters, ads on gas stations, basically saying these products are just as bad as smoking, blah, 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 blah. So to combat that, you really need to get out in front and fight them on their own turf.
I guess the only answer I've really got for the question is not blowing smoke. So I'm going to twist the question in reverse. One of the things that I think that we're having the biggest problem with is being the source of the misinformation, and that's such. So we really have to watch the echo chamber effect when it comes to the incredible amount of social media that vapors approach. And even when we've asked vapors to write letters to newsletters or to newspapers and stuff like that, I'm not talking like an op-ed, a structured document. I'm talking a simple 100-word response. Vapors are extremely likely to rant. They're extremely likely to throw out these crazy claims and not really focus on the true problem. And I think what we need to do is the best weapon to aid not blowing smoke is to reduce the negative information that's out there. And I think if we could reduce that by making sure that we post appropriately, not amplifying those lies that people tell, and most of all is presenting a publicly acceptable presence. That's really what needs to be done.
This next one also comes from Facebook as well. The question is this: do you see the need for more educational type conferences for the industry as opposed to the vape meet style conventions that we're used to?
Well, actually, I see that we need to revamp the whole thing. There needs to be education for advocates. There needs to be education for vendors. There needs to be education for consumers. Let's go further. Let's create education for lawmakers. Let's create education for policymakers. In fact, as an industry, just like every other industry that has a misunderstood topic, one of the outreaches we need to do is educate. If we don't inform people outside of our industry, and even more critically, the people inside our industry, of the latest trends, the latest information, the latest scientific data, all that, then all we're doing is creating a vacuum of information that will be replaced with misinformation every time.
Right. And the thing is, education is a big word, because there's so many different groups in vaping that all need their education in a different manner, because education for advocates would be a completely different topic than education for vendors. And even within the vendors, is it education for e-liquid manufacturers? Is it for retail stores? I mean, all their interests are different. So eventually, I would hope to see more shall we use the word high-end conferences where it's maybe a little less expo-ish, a little less business-to-business networking, a whole lot less of throwing a whole bunch of free shit into a crowd, and actually sit down and learn from people who've been there in other industries, who can help, talk to people with chemical engineering backgrounds, and just elevate the industry to a slightly more professional level.
Perfect. The next one comes from Facebook as well. As a consumer, I see that the community has fragmented under pressure and moved toward a more click-style base. Is that a similar trend within advocacy?
You know, a lot of people like to paint this picture that apparently there needs to be advocates for the young people. There needs to be advocates for the cloud blowers. There needs to be advocates for the people that are still smoking. There needs to be advocates for the dual users. Well, sooner or later, there's going to be more advocates than there are actual people that are using the product. And it's kind of crazy. I know personally there's not a single person in advocacy that I can't pick up the phone any hour of the day and call them and say, I have a problem, I need your attention, and I get it. And I'm sure that when I pass the mic over to Stefan, same thing. He knows I'm readily available to help anybody in any way I can.
And Joe has my phone number. I think what we're seeing is one of those typical internet phenomena. People out there like drama. They like creating drama where there is none. And one of the things I've seen is that it's always an outside group trying to pitch people together, come up with a story, run with it, and 10 posts later, it's a completely different story. Here's an example. Based on the other question that was asked, what did you do in a previous life? One of the things I'm known for outside of vaping is my enormous home office, which is sort of like a spaceship. Now, there's another guy out there called Mitch Hale, and he had a very, very similar office. Mitch and I have been friends for many, many years. However, if you start looking up our names and the word home office on Google, you will find hundreds of articles that were spawned off on different forums across different tech fields, where basically everybody had a story that Mitch and I were rivals, and we were at each other's throats. And if I bought something, he had to outdo it and buy something bigger, and then I would buy something bigger. And we were just this like weird group that would just blow money just to upstage each other to post nicer pictures. And this ended in the story turning into, well, Mitch and Stefan are such rivals, if they ever meet, they'll kill each other. It's an internet phenomena. People like doing that stuff, and I've seen it in advocacy, I've seen it in vaping, and you know what? Best thing to do is just ignore it.
Perfect. Last question before we move on to the topic of the episode. But this question comes from Twitter, and it says, how do we reach business owners who are too, quote-unquote, busy to participate in activism? Joe?
Well, the easiest way to reach a business owner that's too busy to participate in advocacy is to stop patronizing him. That's one of the things that consumers forget. You hold the key tool to making a business owner aware of advocacy. Your dollar stays in your pocket because that particular person is not supporting advocacy, then you've made a statement. And I'll guarantee you by the 17th, 18th, the full day of customers coming to the counter, pulling no dollars out of their wallet, I bet you they'll be on Google real quick going, what do I need to find out? And we've made it much easier than having to do that. They can contact any of the advocacy groups. We'll steer them to the one that they need to be in immediately and start their education right there. Anybody late to the game, it doesn't matter. At this point, it needs to be everybody in the game. So let's not worry about who's been there the longest, who came in the door last. Let's just get the job done.
Right, and it also depends on why would a store owner or a business owner be busy? Can we find out the reason why they're busy? Are they busy because they're understaffed and their business isn't doing well and they're working 18-hour days? Or are they so busy that they're making such truckloads of money that maybe they should then put a portion to that towards advocacy, or maybe hire a person to deal with those matters for them? There's probably a whole lot of reasons why somebody is busy, but the question is, are they too busy to use the proceeds of the time that they invest in their company towards having other people do the work for them?
So I'm going to bring us back to the topic at hand for this episode. And I've asked 4 e-liquid manufacturers this weekend and gotten a very different answer from each of them. And I want to get kind of the vibe of what you as advocates and activists think. But that question spawns off the same thing that I've been talking about on this show since the very first episode that we launched, which was the perception issue, the way that the non-smoking, non-vaping public views us. So the question is this: with the perception problem in mind, is vaping cool and should it be? And to go a little bit further into that, is it attractive and should it be?
I think vaping should definitely be attractive and cool for smokers.
Oh, wow. That was on point. You know, one of the things that the FDA does look at is this something that would cause someone that's out of the market to choose to initiate it? Okay. So I've used a very complex phrase that says, who are we marketing to? Okay. This product should be anything we want to the target audience that it's designed for. However, it will not go unnoticed by those markets that we are not marketing to. It's almost as crazy as, I'm sure that everybody has seen this somewhere in their life. You know, a grandchild gets a yo-yo. And they go and they visit their granddad and everything's fun. And that kid's having an absolute blast with that yo-yo. And I myself, I'm a grandfather. My grandkids are playing with a yo-yo. I'm probably going to go buy a yo-yo and play with them. Was that marketed to grandparents? Oh, wait, a grandparent bought it. Okay, we need to get some reality to what's being said. Okay, the claim itself, not understanding who we're marketing to, is important. We need the vendors to make clear delineations on who they're marketing to, and they should ignore the claims of those people that are saying you're marketing to other than your market. If you're doing this correctly, using the right PR, public relations, using the right marketing strategy, it becomes very evident of what you're doing. And that, I think, is a very important part. So should it be cool? Yes, to those people who are designed to use the product. Should it be to those that are not? No.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. If you wouldn't mind just throwing out either the website or the Facebook group or whatever it is so that the people listening to the show can find you guys, that would be wonderful.
Again, I'm Joe Barnett. You can contact us at thevapingmilitia.org. Up on the website, we've got tons of blog information. There's a contact us if you need to get in direct contact with us. There's also tons of great articles. We bring stuff in from all over places, kind of aggregate some information there. So if there's anything we can do to help you, let us know.
And I'm Stefan Dietrich from notblowingsmoke.org, which you can find at, guess what, notblowingsmoke.org. If you can't find the website, just Google Not Blowing Smoke or Still Blowing Smoke or any combination of anything to do with blowing smoke, because apparently we're easy to find.
Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. We'll see you next time. Well, everybody, that's going to do it for us here at Vape Politics Radio and vapepolitics.com. We'd like to thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode and kind of catch up with what we're doing. We would like to take a moment to talk about our gold sponsor, Bulldog Vapor, in Atlanta, Georgia. www.bulldog-vapor.com. On behalf of everyone here at Vape Politics Radio, we would like to thank you so much, and we'll see you in the next episode.